Have you ever tried to resolve a conflict only to make it worse? I've done that way too many times. I was thinking about like those times when somebody has a problem with you, and so you need to apologize, but all you can seem to muster is, "I'm sorry you feel that way."
Yeah,
which isn't really.
Or you just walk out of the room, or
I mean, it's not really even that's not really an apology. You're basically acknowledging that they don't agree with you, and that's all.
Yeah.
But I've also said things like this and made a mistake saying, "Hey, we really needed to talk." Which can feel like you're gonna come down heavy on somebody and just put defenses up. Yeah. In fact, when I was a teenager, I had these cousins that came to live with our family for just maybe like 3 or 4 months or something like that, and they were mad at each other, and so they'd come to me with their stuff, and I tried to resolve the conflict by being two-faced and kind of like playing them against each other so that they would like me. That did not work out. And we are here to talk about conflict resolution today. Thanks for joining us. I'm Gabe. This is Melissa. And we are here with the Midweek Motivation episode of the Westside podcast. And actually, we're following up from Easter services at Westside.
What a fun
which
weekend.
Was so much fun.
It was so much fun.
Yeah, we just had a blast, had 4 services this last weekend, and we talked about the idea of resolving conflict at home. So we're following up today with a little bit more about that.
Going a little deeper.
And what we learned last weekend, just as a recap, if you didn't see it, go back and watch. But it was that we have peace with God, but we have to work for peace with other people.
Yes.
And that's really the truth. So, you kind of have a choice to make with conflict, which is either you're going to resolve it or the relationship is going to dissolve at some level. Yeah. And we kind of have to make a choice. And I know it's very intimidating. It feels like something that's very hard to succeed in. So we're going to talk about the 10 commandments of conflict resolution, and Melissa's going to kick us off with that.
Yeah, I feel like the whole point of this is to learn peace in the home, right?
Yeah.
It's what we were talking about this last weekend. And it's just like, how do you bring peace into the home? How do you deal with conflict? Because you're going to have conflict. Every home has conflict. Probably even if you are living by yourself, there could be conflict because you're still going to have people over. They're still going to be interacting. You're still going to be going to work. You're still going to be going to the gym, wherever your people are, your community is. There's the opportunity for conflict.
Yeah.
And so how are we going to deal with that? So we're talking specifically at home, on the weekends right now, but we're not really talking at just home. We're talking about everywhere.
Just connecting with people. Principles, really.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we decided, okay, let's talk about the 10 commandments of conflict resolution. And so number 1, and this was Gabe and I just like talking off the cuff the other day. We're like, okay, so like, what are some tips and tricks that we do that kind of helps us not have a lot of conflict in the home? So the first one that we were talking about was pick your battles.
Yeah.
Number 1 commandment, pick your battles. Oh my goodness. When Caitlin was a little girl, and we talk about this in our book, You're My Favorite. Gabe and I have a marriage book called You're My Favorite. And in there, we talk about picking your battles because Caitlin was like 13 years old and she was obsessed with Selena Gomez, and we still love her. And
who, Caitlin or Selena Gomez?
I like both of them a lot. But
we love them both. Just
but
for
Caitlin
the
and I
record.
love Selena still. But what's crazy is Selena Gomez has this cute little like treble clef tattoo on her wrist, and Caitlin wanted one since she was like 13 years old. Well, in Oregon, you have to be 18 to get a tattoo. And so we were like, well, if you still want it when you're 18, we'll talk about it, right? Let's see what happens here. And so she turns 18 and wants it still. And so I'm like, oh, crud, that didn't work out. So I took her down to the tattoo shop and got her a tattoo. And then she decided to also get another tattoo that day, which I was like, oh Lord. So she got one that says forgiven. And then the little treble clef. You know what? I was like, is this really worth the big fight? Is this worth like just upset in the home? She was 18 and we made it. I told her that's what we were going to do. I think sometimes as parents, we just want to make a big fight out of everything. And kids certainly want to make a big fight out of everything. So it's like, come on, let's pick our battles. Let's be smart about it. So 2 Timothy 2:24 says, a servant of the Lord must not quarrel, but must be kind to everyone, able to teach, and be patient with difficult people. That's such a hard verse. It makes me laugh a little bit though, because you have to read it slow and think about it, right? Be kind to everyone, be able to teach, and be patient with difficult people.
Yeah.
Woo! That's hard, but that's in God's word. And that's why we believe so strongly about following God's word in your relationships and in your home, because there's so much good stuff in the Bible. Just open it up and read it. The principles or promises are just pouring out everywhere. And so this is so good. So pick your battles, deal with it. Number 2 commandment is know your audience.
That's a good one.
I was thinking about this, and I didn't even tell you about this, but I was thinking of Luke 12:7, because this is what popped in my head. God knows the hairs on your head. And I was thinking of Psalms 56:8, that he keeps track of our tears. And I just think he knows, he's so intimately involved with us. He knows everything about us. He knows his audience. He knows how to reach us. And a lot of times we don't know how to reach other people. We don't know our audience. We don't know how they are. Are they shy?
Yeah.
Are they sensitive? Are they assertive? Because really, you're going to deal with somebody differently. I'm a very assertive person, so you have to be a little bit more direct with me, and I'm okay with that. But if I'm dealing with someone sensitive and shy, I'm not going to be as assertive as I would want to be, because you got to know your audience. You got to know who you're talking to. Is it a close friend? Is it an acquaintance? Do you have permission with this person? And will they listen to you? Because I think like a lot of times, as an assertive person and an exhorter by spiritual gifting, I want to tell people what to do. And as a mom, right? And I can't. I don't always have permission to do that. Sometimes I need to step back and I need to understand who I'm talking to. I might be able to give a little tidbit here and there to somebody, but it takes time to be able to speak into someone, especially if there's conflict. You can't just jump onto somebody and try to fix it with your aggressive nature. No. Who are you talking to? Like literally, who are you talking to? Know your audience. So know who you're talking to so that you know how to talk to them, so that they will listen and there'll be resolution. So, and then the third commandment is a snack and a nap. I love this one. Okay. So we were reading one time about this, and I don't know who said this exactly. It was a pastor somewhere about HALT.
Yes.
The HALT.
Yeah.
This is so good. If you're hungry, angry, lonely, tired, halt. Don't start in on the big conversation. You will not have conflict resolution at that point. It will not work, I promise you. Mark 6:31 says, let's go off to a quiet place and rest a while.
Yeah.
Jesus was saying that, like, let's chill out.
I'm beat.
I'm beat. Let's just chill out for a little bit. When you're hungry and tired, you will not communicate with humility and patience at all. I can guarantee that. So the opposite will happen. So then people get offended, and then defensive, and it just explodes. It gets ugly. So step back and make sure you're ready to talk with love so that you can resolve an issue and not start a new one, right?
Oh, so good. And I mean, it's good to evaluate, am I hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? It might also be good to ask yourself the question, is the person I want to talk to hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? Because that wouldn't be good timing either.
No, that's the whole point of resolving conflict, is you got to be in a healthy space to be able to take it or dish it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times we're dishing it, but we're hungry and we're angry and we're tired.
It amplifies everything.
It makes it worse.
Yeah, so true. Okay, number 4, know your why. I want to talk a little bit about this because besides being proven right, which is what most of us want out of an argument, right? To be the one that's right. What do you actually want? I mean, have you thought through what outcome you desire? What would resolve the conflict for you? Sometimes I think we come into conflict, we're just dissatisfied. And all we know is we don't like what happened, but we haven't painted a picture of what would be better. We haven't clarified even for ourselves what would be better, what would solve it, what would resolve it. And until we do that, we really can't even have a conversation because we wouldn't know what we're even asking for in that conversation. And I think one of the questions in Know Your Why is it a win-win? Because if it's not a win-win, it might not be from God, because generally those are the things that work in relationships. And there's probably times when that's not possible, but that might mean this isn't a healthy relationship in the first place. So I think knowing your why is really important. Here's an example. A boss gets on an employee because they're not following instructions. The employee gets defensive because they thought they were doing the right thing. And the boss says, or to the boss, I would say, what do you want? Do you want a robot or a leader? Because if you're going to get mad at somebody who's not doing things exactly the way you said they would, what you might be looking for is robots, not leaders, because a leader wants you to point to the target on the wall and say, that's where we're going, you figure out how to get there. And so sometimes we you got to ask the question, what is it that you want in the relationship? What do you want? If you're a parent, what do you want? Do you want a kid that doesn't think? No, probably not. And so there's a way to go about this in the conflict resolution to ask yourself, what is the why? Yeah. Jesus goes in Luke 14, he said, don't begin until you count the cost. And he's talking about building a tower, but the same in a conflict resolution thing. Count the cost, know the process, know your outcome, know your why, because then you'll be able to communicate it clearly. The fifth one is focus on restoration. That is one thing that we know about conflict is that the outcome always should point toward restoration.
That's right.
The coming together. We talked last weekend about how peace is something that God has offered to us through Jesus. And then he asks us to make peace with other people. And the opposite of peace is to be pulled apart. And so if we're going to have peace, what that is putting us back together. Mm-hmm. Restoration is always the reason why we would have a conflict resolution moment, why we would try to resolve it. It's always the goal.
Don't you feel like a lot of times with resolution, like you're thinking you're getting a resolution with it, but really you just want to vent. Totally. You want to be heard.
Yeah.
You want to say your piece and drop the mic and walk out. And it's like, there's no resolution there. Yeah. Like that just made it, you just stirred the poop.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, besides justification or retribution, those are things that, like, to justify myself in the conflict or to get back at you somehow. That doesn't qualify as a good reason to have a discussion in conflict. It should be about restoration.
Always.
Jeremiah 24:7. I love this. This is God's heart for all of us, and his heart toward us is, I will give them hearts that recognize me as the Lord. They will be my people, and I will be their God, for they will return to me wholeheartedly. I mean, God's talking about, what does that look like to come back together? You got peace.
That's right.
You got love. You got joy. So a question for you in your own home at this moment, whatever that looks like, whether it might be roommates or it might be, parents of kids and have a family. You might be a married couple and no kids. You might be, just hanging out by yourself.
Single parent, grandparents.
Yeah, there's so many different scenarios, right? But home is the place where we experience some of the deepest wounds because we take things so personally. So what would restoration look like for you in your relationship where you maybe have a conflict? And could you approach this conversation or a situation as though you'll be with this person forever? Because that might put the perspective where it needs to be. Like, this is a long-term thing. And if you're in a long-term relationship, here's what I'm learning. You don't burn bridges. And it's so easy in a heightened emotional conversation to burn bridges on accident, and then those bridges are gone.
Yeah.
And if they ever get rebuilt, sometimes it takes years. So focus on restoration. Very, very important.
Yep.
The sixth commandment that we just, again, kind of scribbling stuff out, like what matters to us, how have we worked through this and learned, sometimes from our own bumps and bruises. But the sixth one is seek first to understand and then to be understood. That's a Stephen Covey statement from the 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. Seek first to understand and then to be understood, which is totally reverse of human nature.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody's like, just understand me, listen to me.
Listen to me.
We all feel that way.
I have an opinion.
Yeah, we have an opinion. But so seek first to understand. And I think as a parent, we have grown with our kids in this way because when our kids were little, we had one approach, to parenting, and that was kind of command and control. I mean, what choice do you have? When a toddler's having a fit, you command and you control. That's what you do. But as they get a little bit older, you kind of have to adjust. And sometimes it took a conflict for me to understand that they were moving into a new phase, or multiple conflicts, and then I kind of had to pause and go, wait, I need to understand them. Like, they're thinking different. Their body's going through changes. They're actually becoming more mature, and I'm treating them like they're still 3, or, they're 14. I'm treating them like they're still 10 and not giving them the space. What is it that they need? And so sometimes I think it's asking questions. What are they going through? How are they feeling? What do they need? And maybe just asking those questions to them. If you want to understand somebody, ask them. Jesus did that. It says in Mark 10:51, he goes, "What do you want me to do for you?" Jesus asked. My rabbi, the blind man, said, "I want to see." I mean, imagine Jesus gets in there. He's like, "Hey, man, here's a happy meal." And this guy's like, "Yeah, but I'm blind." And, so what is it that the person that you're talking to wants and needs?
I think a lot of times, too, is thinking about maybe with people in your home, their background, especially when you're bringing in people like roommates, or as you learn about them, or boyfriends, girlfriends, husbands, wives, you're thinking about, well, they had this bump back here. Something bad happened to them growing up, or something, they had a trauma, they had an issue. And a lot of times thinking about that, like, I wonder if they're reacting like this. I wonder if it's stemming from that, not pointing it out necessarily, but just having a little bit more sensitivity to understand they might be more sensitive to that than I am, because I didn't go through what they went through a lot of times. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah, totally. The 7th one is assume the best. We've learned this one because it's so easy to do the exact opposite. It's so easy to, like, if there's a conflict, especially if it's emotional, it's so easy to paint the other person as the villain. And, if they looked at you funny, to assume what they were actually trying to say out loud, but they only said with a look. So you can assume that, and you make it up in your mind, you build it up. Now it's like they hate me.
It gets bigger and bigger.
Yeah. Or, whatever.
Or you rehearse it in your head.
You rehearse it. Yeah. And so assume the best. Yeah. It's really trust versus suspicion. And, that's good. So trust has to be earned in relationships at some level, but in the beginning, it's got to be given. If you're in a relationship, it's got to be given. And you might be like, yeah, you don't understand the people that I'm in a relationship with. True. But assume the best when a conflict comes up, because there's all sorts of emotions flying around. And I think this
assumptions.
And assumptions.
Just assumptions.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
Stop assuming.
Yeah. So I think maybe stop asking why they might have done this, or not done this, or said that, or forgotten to do this, or whatever the thing might be. Because at the end of the day, it's not about you, and they're not the enemy. I mean, this is about restoration. And God might have put you in the situation to be the restorer, So I love what somebody said. They said, don't try to fix the person, try to fix the issue. They're not the enemy. Let's see if we can get on the same side of the table as they are. And Ephesians 4:29 is a good reminder about how we approach this, even verbally. It says, let everything you say be good and helpful, so that your words will be an encouragement to those who hear them. And it's so much better to have that let's assume the best about people approach when we get into a conflict.
So good. Encouragement. That's the key. Well, these last few we talk about in our book, you're my favorite again, in our communication section. I think that's chapter 5. And it means a lot when you're dealing with conflict resolution to me. So we decided to add it in here. And the first one is watch your tone. Commandment number 8, watch your tone. How you say something. Tone is how you say something. Proverbs 15:1 says, a gentle answer deflects anger. So listen to this. I don't know. Right?
Yeah, totally.
Like, I totally just made that like all fine. And then it got really sassy. Tone.
Yeah.
Oh man, I can do sassy tones. Most women really can.
Yeah, you can.
Girls.
Yeah, you can.
Settle it down, girlies. We can be so, like, our tongue can be so manipulative and rude and sassy. So be careful with your body language too. Body language can say a lot. Folding your hands, looking away, disinterested, not caring. That's all a part of it. I mean, also voice inflections, how I just did that with the I don't know, and eye contact. I mean, like, if you're dealing with conflict resolution, you should probably be looking at the person, and not in a creepy, scary way, like with dead eyes, like, but just like working through something together and just like talking through it. But watch your tone. What do you want to say to them? How do you want them to feel? And be nice in how you say it, and just watch your tone. Number 9 is use tact when communicating. This is what you say. So what you say. So tone is how you say it, but this is what you say. Proverbs 25:11 says, a word fitly spoken is like an apple of gold in a setting of silver.
That's
so
beautiful,
pretty.
Isn't it?
Yes, it's so pretty. But your words are powerful, right? I mean, read James. Oh my goodness. The book of James is so good about this. Your words, how you say something, you can show love and hate in the exact same paragraph. I mean, we can be so hateful and with the same tongue be so loving, and it's just frankly so hypocritical. So man, so be careful what you say to each other and show some tact. And then number 10, be thoughtful about your timing. Tone, tact, timing. And this is when you say it. Proverbs 15:23 says, it's wonderful to say the right thing at the right time. I love that. It's wonderful. Do we do it all the time? No, not really. But, I like the verse and I'm trying. So if the person you want to talk to is in the middle of like a big project or is going to bed or is having some dinner or is on the phone, maybe wait to have a deep conversation. If you're going to like start stirring up a conflict and we need to resolve this right now, that kind of thing. And they're just over there I'm heading to bed. Like what on earth? It's not good timing. So pick another time when you guys can talk together. Maybe you'll have to schedule a time. I do not like that. I can't stand if somebody says, can I talk to you? Can we make a phone appointment? Can we meet up? Because I don't like that. Let's just talk about it right now. Like that's how I am. But some people are processors and they want to think through what they want to say and how they want to say it and say all the right things. And so they want to prepare for it. So maybe you need to schedule a time and have somebody be ready, totally prepared to talk. So you got to again, we're talking about know your audience earlier. Like you got to know who you're talking to. But for me, it's like, hey, I just had something because I like things and not be such a big deal. So let's nip them in the bud, right? Like this happened, let's not have it happen again, that kind of thing. But, be careful about your timing. We talked about the halt already. Be careful about your timing. I mean, that it really matters how you say it, when you say it, and what time of day you say it, all that matters. So those are some 10 commandments. Do you have a bonus?
I do have a bonus.
All right.
But first, before that, I got to say about the timing thing, something came to mind about why timing is so difficult in so many relationships when it comes to conflict. One is because it might be that the balance of communication is negative. And so you're trying to figure out where do I slide in another jab, another thing, and be careful about that. I mean, be mindful of like how much is positive versus negative. And the other thing is, I think a lot of relationships, particularly in homes, are time starved. And so you're like, well, we got 5 minutes on Thursday or maybe 3 minutes on Sunday. Where could we slide this in? And so
it's not natural to have the conversations because we're too busy, and then we have to like slide in. We have to make it a special time block for it, and then it's this huge big deal, and everybody comes defensive already and freaked out.
Whereas maybe if you have just routine times together, then you're not going to be time starved, and you'll find the right. You'll know when it's right. When it's right, you'll know. And you can feel that out a little bit. The bonus is this. Okay,
tell me.
Is start with prayer. I was like, well, we came up with these 10 commandments. We didn't even talk about the way to soften it all up, actually. So number one really should be start with prayer.
That's right.
Because, when you're going to say something, first of all, you got to pray through to where you have the right attitude. Because that's going to make or break it. If you have the right attitude, it's going to make or break it. Like the attitude of restoration, the attitude of humility, the attitude of gentleness, all those things. Pray through first for yourself to have the right attitude, to forgive if you're holding a grudge, because you don't want to go into a conflict having not forgiven. Because did you know that you don't need anyone's permission to forgive them? And so pray through your own attitude and forgiveness, and that way you enter that conversation ready, but also pray that they'll enter it ready with a receptive heart, and that the timing will be right and all that. And God can take those what feels impossible and just organize it. And all of a sudden you both get this green light, like, hey, we're supposed to talk about something right now.
And if you both come in as wanting to resolve, like let's resolve with a humble, sweet spirit and not like I'm going to get my way, or this isn't going to work out, or you better move out. I know that a lot of times with roommates, it's really difficult because you have, you don't have to like each other. You don't have to love each other. You're just paying half my rent. Well, but you got to share the food, and you got to share the bills, and you got to share the space. And so, you better learn how to conflict resolute well. Yeah,
for sure. So anyways, thanks for listening to our 10.4, 10 and a half commandments of conflict resolution. And we hope that you will take these to heart, put them into practice. And we also hope that you will subscribe to this podcast and share it with people because we know everyone needs a boost here in the middle of the week.
That's for sure.
And we want to invite you to join us at Westside Community Church this weekend. You could do that online at westsidecommunitychurch.com or right here on site at our campus in the Portland, Oregon area. And you should know this weekend, we are talking about how to stop arguing and start communicating. So we're in the middle of a Help at Home series that I think is going to be very helpful to you, and we hope to see you this weekend.